Well, thank you again for joining us here at Medical Mastery, the podcast of the Emerald Coast Medical Association. We are pleased to be joined by Dr. Andrew Borom, who is, according to my notes here, an orthopedic surgeon. Is that right?
That's what they tell me.
Right? I'm going to have to check those again. So Andy, as I will call you throughout the rest of this interview, just because I'm going to fake that colloquialism for us. Really, really glad that you are here. We're going to talk about all kinds of different things about your career, about perhaps some of the things that you do in the Florida Medical Association for all of us without us even knowing about it. Perhaps some of your hobbies that are interesting, to say the least. But let's start off with where are you from?
So I grew up in upstate New York.
Oh, I've heard of it.
Schenectady.
Schenectady. I'm not going to try and spell that.
It's famous for being the place where Grace's mom lived on Will and Grace, and probably not much else. It was where General Electric was
Grace's
founded.
Mom. Okay, gotcha.
So GE was founded there, and that's why my dad was there. He was a research scientist for General Electric. So I grew up there throughout all of high school, and the happiest day of my life was the day that I realized that living in upstate New York was optional. I'm sitting around going, so I can just go. I can just leave. Okay.
Nobody's going to hold me in.
So then I went off to college at the University of Virginia.
Okay.
Took a couple of years off to get my brain right, make sure that my original thought that I wanted to be a physician was correct.
Okay.
And when I realized that, I went back to the University of Virginia, finished med school there. And then I went out to the University of Arizona for my orthopedic surgical residency.
Gotcha.
After that, I went to the University of Texas at Houston to train under a guy named Tom Clanton, who was at that time, the president of the American Orthopedic Foot and Ankle Society. Okay. So I did a year's worth of training in foot and ankle surgery. Immediately after that, I actually went and did a locum tenens as an orthopedic surgeon in New Zealand, which was
as you do.
Yeah, well, I mean, who doesn't?
Was there a language barrier?
It's funny you say that, because when I went there, I thought that I spoke English, but it turns out what I speak is American, and they speak Kiwi or New Zealand, whatever you want.
Who knows? I can't even tell you.
I mean, like, for example, tea. If someone invites you over for tea, what do you think is going to happen?
So you're going to have tea,
You're going to have tea.
Yeah.
So a physician in the area invited me to come over for tea at 6 p.m., and I'm like, wow. Tea. I'm going to probably be pretty hungry by then. I probably ought to go eat and eat something. So I went and ate a full dinner. Well, it turns out tea means dinner. So I show up and they've got like lobster and all this stuff, and I'm like choking.
This is not the tea I'm used to. I've got to tell you, this is totally different.
So that was it was definitely, there were some language barriers to kind of overcome. Probably the biggest, most interesting thing to overcome was, as a locum tenens, you're only allowed to work on the public side of their healthcare system.
Okay.
And New Zealand is a socialized healthcare system.
Okay.
And the very first thing that they introduce you to as a new surgeon who's coming in to operate in New Zealand is the list, as they call it. And the list is a stack of papers about yay high. And what it is a list of all the people who've been approved for a government-funded operation. So if you start at the top of the list, to get to the bottom of the list takes about 18 months, which of course does not count the 9 months or so it takes to get in to see the orthopedic surgeon.
Of course.
It does not count the 3 months it takes to get in to see your primary care doctor. So in a socialized healthcare system, at least the one in New Zealand, the time from grandma says my hip hurts to when they actually get some relief in the form of a hip replacement or what have you is about 2.5 years.
Yes.
So it was just a very, very interesting difference in how healthcare is practiced.
Yeah, and what a formative time, I think, for you to be, first of all, fresh out and doing, because, as soon as we finish training, we're full-on experts. We know everything. There's not a chance we can mess up anything. We don't need any more training or anything like that. And so being a fresh attending, if you will, to come out there must have been fascinating. Yeah. Now, I'm going to take you back for a second and let's go back to undergrad for a second. Okay, so you went to UVA. You wanted to study under the auspices of Thomas Jefferson.
Yep.
And you decided, what were you going to study there?
So actually, I went there with the intention, I'm the youngest of 4 boys.
Okay.
And more than anything, my mom wanted
someone. I'm so sorry for your mom.
I know, that's what everyone says. And when I say I'm the youngest, people go,
yeah.
Which I still not sure what that means, but I'm afraid I kind of know. So anyway, I was her last hope to become a doctor. She really, really wanted one of her sons to become a doctor. And so I was her last shot.
Yes.
So I had kind of always liked that. I was really, really drawn to biology and the sciences and all these things. So all the things you need to maybe even have a chance of going to become a doctor. And so I sort of went in with that plan. I was going to be pre-med. And as I'm sure you recall, you jump on the little pre-med train as a first year in college, and like you go through your chemistry, and then you go through your biology and organic and physics and all that stuff. Yes. And you're just kind of chugging along, and about 50% of your entire college course load is already selected for you.
Yes.
And you never stop to think to yourself, is this really what I want to do?
Right.
Because you just kind of go along. It's like, yeah, I'm good at this science stuff. This is great. I'm doing well.
That's right. That's right.
And so I went through all of that. Went and applied to medical schools, got into some really, really good programs. And one of the ones that I was considering was Tulane.
Yes.
And I remember they sent me a letter sometime in like June. And they're like, congratulations, you've been accepted. We'll see you in August and bring $40,000.
Oh.
And now remember, this was $1988,
it was cheaper
which
then.
is about $4 million
yes.
now. And I was like, whoa, that's all of a sudden real. So I wasn't certain that, I'm like, do I really want to go ahead and commit the next 50 years of my life to a decision that was made by a 17-year-old?
Right.
And I couldn't get my head around that. And so I went ahead and decided I can't do this. So I called up and asked if I could defer. They said, nope, it's too late. You either come or you get to reapply next year. And I'm like, that's it, I'm out. And I had half a dozen acceptances.
Sure.
And I can't tell you how happy that made my mom. She was thrilled.
That's not what I would have predicted. That's weird. Okay.
So happy. So happy.
Excuse me, you did what?
What now?
Yeah.
And the best part was I decided that what I had to do to really go ahead and, I'd been in this little tunnel of I'm going to be a doctor and all that stuff. It's like, I've got to go ahead and see something different. I got to go see something other than medicine. So one of my roommates from college had gotten a job as a stockbroker.
Oh.
I'm like, maybe I'll try that.
Yes.
Again, cannot tell you how happy mine was. So
how many times have you murdered your mom at this point? Like
just this. Well, I mean, about 400 before that.
Yeah, but
this was
point,
the coup de grace.
Yes, exactly. It's different.
So I ended up moving up to Long Island. I slept on my former roommate's floor of his one-room apartment in Long Island and studied for the Series 7 exam.
Okay.
After a month, I took it, I passed it, I became a stockbroker with absolutely no experience. Now, if you look back to, say, 1988, which is when I graduated, you may or may not notice that the whole penny stock scam thing was going on. That's what I got myself into.
Ah, good. Okay.
It took me about 3 months to figure it out. I looked around, realized it's like, you know what? What it really did for me, though, was it refocused on why I thought medicine was worth doing.
Yeah.
It's like all these people care about is money. That's all they care about. Nothing else. They may pretend that they're trying to help so-and-so reach their financial goals or whatever, especially in this sort of shady world that I stumbled into totally by accident.
Right.
These people didn't care about the people they were allegedly taking care of at all.
Yes.
And I'm like, that is so the opposite of what I want my life to be. Mm-hmm. It completely recommitted me to wanting to go back to medical school. By that point, it was already too late to apply for 89.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what I'm going to do? A, I want to go to med school. B, I know I want to go back to UVA. I'm going to go back to Virginia, establish my state residency, apply early decision, and then there you go. And that's exactly what I did.
Oh, so it was great. So a lot that I want to hone in on here, because this is really a fascinating thing here. So if you're doing however you want to describe these, whether sanguine or cynically, the penny stock escapades, you did have to have some gift of gab in order to be able to do this. So you're honing in on a talent that is not necessarily scientifically driven. That's a little bit more your ability to speak and convince people. Is that fair?
Now that would go into the assumption that I was good at this. I was terrible at it. Partly because I had the misconception of what this was. I thought I was going to go ahead. Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, wait, I'm supposed to do what? I'm supposed to tell him this, but I know that's not true. And it was, like I said, nothing could probably. I really just wanted to go do something else just to get a different perspective. And I don't think I could have accidentally picked anything better to go ahead and be sort of the exact opposite of what I thought my strengths were and what I wanted to do with them.
That's right. So. It's almost, the vast majority of us go into the healthcare field with a sense of altruism, and,
Sure.
and not even an august altruism, not a I'm so great to be
Right.
altruistic. It's I can't think of doing anything else other
Right.
than being altruistic. And it seems like when you go into the stock trading kind of fields in the financial district, it's much more how can I rationalize this in some sort of altruistic way when in reality I'm doing some other things there.
Yeah.
So
If you've ever watched the movie Boiler Room, that was the era, and that was a very, very tame version of what I actually witnessed.
yeah, so
I was like, this doesn't seem right at all.
it's not at all. It's you used you learned some words during that time.
I did.
I'm assuming.
That's the most important words I learned up there were I quit.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, and it sounds like totally formative, and it served its purpose.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
It got you into doing something. I mean, I know the end of this story a little bit better, or at least this portion of it, and knew that you ended up in medicine, and so it seems like the right place, knowing where this story is going to lead. So, all right, so you went back to UVA there. You did early decision. You established residency in UVA. Did you go back to school?
So actually, I went back to UVA and again moved in with some other friends from college. Living on a floor.
You know, you
until
can get a place of your own, right?
guess-
Is that
well,
something that's
apparently what they want is a deposit and money.
That can't
and I
be
didn't
right.
have any of
Wait.
that. Yeah, no.
Doesn't sound right at all.
So it was just kind of like all of a sudden, guys, I'm going to come down and look for a place. You mind if I crash on your floor? Back when I was 20, 21, whatever, you could do that. I'm not sure I'd want to do it now. But I did it then. I came down. I actually started working. I started waiting tables full time to pay the bills while I looked for, a job. And I wanted to get a job, something more a little scientifically related, or at least kind of refocus on the medicine direction. The best part about going off and doing the whole, sleazy penny stock thing was if I had gone to medical school right out of college, I would have questioned myself to this day. I'm not sure I would have made it to where I am right now.
That's right.
But after that episode, as soon as I started med school, I knew this is exactly what I want to do. There's no question in my mind. There's no doubt. And you know how it is when you're going through, there's hard times in med school. There's difficult times in residency. You can't let doubt drag you down. You have to be convinced and confident this is what you're doing, and what you're doing is for the right reasons. And that was without question the best 2 years I spent based on the net return from them.
Absolutely. It's the same. There's an analogy here that I have with my smoking patients where I say, the reason that you smoke is because you haven't convinced yourself you need to, because once you do, it's hard to keep you smoking.
Yeah.
And so you had kind of gotten that position of, no, I'm going to go through this and do this. And now I'm going to also say, just from some personal experience, going to school in New Orleans is difficult for a lot. So there may have been a blessing there too. Again, we'll leave the rest. In fact, edit all this out. So, all right. So you go from there now. So you're in medical school. At that point, you've gotten accepted into UVA. At that point, did you know that surgery was going to be your thing?
So let me back up just a little bit, because when I was waiting tables, I was applying for jobs, and I was living up in Northern Virginia, kind of the DC Beltway area.
Yes.
And I ended up getting a job as a lab assistant, essentially, in a combined National Institutes of Health and Georgetown facility in Rockville, Maryland, which was a DC Beltway kind of commute. It took me an hour each way. It was miserable. Some days I'd have to take the metro to the bus, to walk to whatever else.
To the submarine.
Exactly.
Right.
To the catapult.
Yes.
And but in 1989, this lab was researching HIV vaccines, which was very, very interesting to me, because you have to remember, you have to think back to 1989. I mean, HIV was first described in 1983.
Correct.
I think it was 83. And so it was still new. This was pre-Magic Johnson. To that point, HIV positivity, it was a death sentence. It was a death sentence. And, we had the full-on hoods and the micropipettes and all the stuff that they show on some clip when they want to show biohazards. So that's what I was doing. And, a very, very interesting thing happened that I saw there that didn't become relevant until about 2020, or like just kind of sat in the back of my mind. And one thing I remember is everybody there doing HIV vaccine research, none of them could stand Anthony Fauci. Not a one of them. And I'm like, that's weird because I've heard about this guy. And he's, well, why do you all dislike him so much?
Yes.
And the reason they disliked him, and this isn't something I just looked up 5 minutes ago. This was, I remember, from 1989.
Yes.
So Anthony Fauci was working under the lab of a guy named Gallo. I think it's Frank Gallo. But Gallo was the head of the lab. Fauci was one of his subordinates. And they were coordinating and collaborating with a French physician named Luc Montagnier, a French researcher. And I think Luc Montagnier had isolated what he called HTLV3, which was human T lymphotrophic virus number 3.
Yeah.
And essentially, he had gone ahead and isolated HIV, and he accidentally included some samples of HIV, which had never been described before, in a package that he was sending over to Gallo's lab.
Okay.
And now this is all the way it was told to me by these people who invested their whole lives in doing HIV research.
Yes.
Send it on over to Gallo's lab. Fauci gets a hold of it, finds these mystery samples, and rather than doing what you'd expect a collaborative researcher or physician to do and say, hey, Luke, you sent me these things. I'm not sure what to make of them. What do you think? Tell me what's going on here. He went ahead and sort of semi-recognized it, ran a couple cell lines, figured out what it was, and said, hey, look what I discovered. So he essentially, and he became famous and built his entire career off him being the one who discovered HIV or isolated HIV, and he stole it. Flat out stole it. And now if you Google and search all this stuff, there's all this stuff about, there was a settlement and they came to an agreement. He stole it.
Sure.
So, because I'm not trying to figure this out backwards from 2020.
No. You were living through it in
this is
an approximate.
Me in 1989, just making note of something that seemed odd and going, oh, that seems weird. And then it all came rushing back in 2020. And so I kind of had some concerns about Anthony Fauci.
Perhaps that would come up again.
Who knew? Who knew? Who knew that would come up again? But, that really struck me. And I don't know why I remembered it so clearly back then. I was just, some job where I would move samples around and put them in the freezer. No, but I just remember that conversation go, wow, you mean people in science can actually be corrupt?
Right.
Turns out they can. You know why? Because they're people.
They're people.
So it was just an interesting time in my life.
No, that is interesting. It's interesting in so many ways. First of all, it's your first time to really kind of work in science. Sure, you can do some basic research whenever you're an undergrad, but actually seeing the science sausage getting made is very interesting. Working in big labs that are working on these things that are kind of taking a prescient piece of American history at the time is also really interesting. And I often think of, you hear these esoteric diagnostic categories or syndromes. The one that always comes to mind is multiple endocrine neoplasia. Okay. How on earth would clinicians be able to put that together, to be able to correlate those two? It just seems like, these men are geniuses that could have thought about these things in a certain way to get these diagnoses. But I also think if you and I were in the early 80s and in the San Francisco Bay Area and saw a ton of young homosexual men coming with very strange pneumonias, that wouldn't ping a certain circuitry in us, because I think we're really good at noticing patterns. So I often think, maybe if you do start to see these patterns enough, something goes off in us, because there's a lot of what we do day to day. Certainly, very easily I could say EKG reading, that's just pattern recognition. Yeah. And so just whenever I think of HIV, I think of those kind of things. Sure. So you move from that lab. Now we go into medical school at that point, and then how did you decide between kind of the fate of internal medicine versus surgery?
The first day of anatomy class, literally the first day, we dissected a shoulder. And I remember thinking, this is the most elegant, incredible, most beautifully designed thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
This machine.
It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe the way the muscles attached and the way every space was efficiently used, and this went here, and the gliding of the glenohumeral joint and the labrum and all this stuff, and I just couldn't believe that, that's what it is, because I'd never seen it before.
Of course.
And I remember looking at that going, this is what I have to do. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Now, ironically, I hate shoulders now. and I don't ever want to touch another one again.
Well, I mean,
but it was
yes,
cool.
but it was cool at the time. Yes,
Beautiful.
exactly.
It's an unbelievable design to have that much free motion and that much strength and ability to do these things. It's just incredible.
Yes.
And but now I'm exclusively foot and ankle.
Yes, and we will come to that. But Mother Nature having a few billion years was helpful to kind of design these things in those ways. But that's so. Our audience here is many physicians that will be familiar with this experience. But there's also going to be some lay audience, and hopefully my family will be listening to this dozens and dozens of times. And so they won't know. Anatomy is one of your very first classes that you ever come into. An anatomy lab is one of those things where you get thrown in the wolves and you better learn very, very quickly some things that are a lot of memorization.
Oh yeah.
And so that's really great that you had the insight at that point.
Yeah, and one of the Tom Clanton, was one of my mentors, Tom Clanton, Bill McGarvey, Grant Brawley, and Jay Oates. Shout out to them.
Yes.
Because I don't think we give enough recognition, enough credit to the people who train the next class of physicians.
Yes.
Doing that is incredibly difficult. I mean, to have the patience to sit there and watch someone take 45 minutes to do something that you could do in 3 is it's saint-like.
Yes.
But at any rate, Tom Clanton would always say, orthopedics is applied anatomy. And when I first heard him say it, I'm not even sure I understood it, but it made it so clear to me right now that even as simple as when you're a medical student and someone says, this guy's knee hurts. Well, if you don't know what's in the knee, the likelihood you have of figuring out what's wrong with that guy is really low.
Yes,
it's very low.
It just went down a lot.
To me, that's one of the most fascinating things about orthopedics is combining the physics of it and combining the anatomy of it and combining, the physiology of it and all that stuff all in one place. And we always get made fun of that we're what is it, twice as strong as an ox and twice as smart or something. I think that may have
There's a fracture in the emergency department. I have to fix it.
I need to fix it. There is a fracture. I need to fix it. But I like to believe that I'm fairly cerebral about thinking about the anatomy and thinking about the physiology. And you're right. I don't know how to treat diabetes anymore. But you know why I don't? Because I know there's people who are way better at it than I am.
There's some other people that can do those kind of things, and that's good that we can kind of get individualized and kind of siloed in some sense. But the other thing that I like about that is that the way that your brain is really working, when somebody says, I have knee pain, you're immediately starting to think of, where is this real pathology coming from? You're interpreting, you're kind of compiling code into some sort of machine language about what somebody is saying into, this is obviously a meniscal tear or something along those lines.
And it's also who's saying it. Is it male or female? Is it someone who's 20 or 70?
That's right.
And all of those things click into different buckets. And sometimes you can, I'm sure with what you do, that you can have the answer 3 seconds after you start talking to somebody.
Yes.
But you just got to listen and make sure you're completely right. And then you want to confirm it.
I often say that I know what I'm going to do in the first 30 seconds I meet you, but the next 30 minutes is having you buy into what I'm talking about here.
True.
And so you go and you've got your mindset. Orthopedic surgery is going to be the thing. Not even general surgery. Orthopedic surgery is going to be the dance here.
I was sold.
All right. So you go on from there. Now, where did you do your internship?
So I did combined orthopedic residency. I did an internship and residency at the University of Arizona.
Okay.
And I was back in the era. Nowadays, at most orthopedic residencies, your internship is kind of an orthopedic internship where you do rheumatology and you do trauma and things like that. I did kind of like more of a traditional general surgery internship. Okay. So I did general surgery for 3 months. I did trauma for a couple of months and rotated through neurosurgery and urology and all these things that are less relevant to orthopedics. But they do teach you how to take care of sick patients. They do teach you how to handle the other organ systems, at least to the degree I need to know. And I always say to anyone, that the most important thing that anybody in medicine, whether it's a physician or a nurse or a PA or anyone, the most important thing that you need to learn is to know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I know what I don't know.
Yes.
I mean, I absolutely know what I don't know. And that's exactly why I want someone else taking care of the patient's diabetes, because I know someone else does that. And like at TOC, at my group, our philosophy is pretty simple. Everybody's fellowship trained. And the minute a patient walks through our doors, our sole goal is to get that person into the hands who's best equipped to take care of them as soon as possible. So none of my partners have, except for my 2 other foot and ankle partners, have any interest in doing anything foot and ankle. And I have no interest in doing spine.
Yes.
But sometimes people come in with pain in the foot and weakness that's coming from their spine,
Yes.
and I got to recognize that and get them to them, and vice versa.
Right.
So
it's a sieving mechanism. And,
Right.
and also, this is another thing that I've kind of been expounding upon and thinking about a lot is that, again, we are in the customer service business.
Right.
And so the sooner that we can realize that we can provide better customer service, and it looks like you're trying to go as bespoke as possible, as quickly as possible. And that's a great idea. I think patients/customers really, really benefit from that kind of thing.
And it's there's a give and take. There's a bit of a challenge because I can't tell you how many people come in, especially older folks, and I'm starting to fit into that category. I'm 58 now.
No, not at all. You hide that well.
They're like, yeah, my shoulder hurts and my knee hurts and my ankle hurts too. Can you look at my knee and my shoulder? I'm like, yes, but no. I'm like, yes, I can, but you really don't want me to.
Yes.
And you may have something simple, but when I went to New Zealand and practiced, I did everything because I was in a community of 19,000 sheep farmers, and there was one other orthopedic surgeon, and he hadn't had vacation in 7 years because there was no one else to help out. So the minute I got there, he took 2 weeks off, and I was there by myself.
Just thrown to the wolves. Yeah, exactly.
12,000 miles
By the way,
away.
you might want to get to the list.
Yeah, the list.
Okay, all right. So orthopedic surgery is going to be your jam. You go into it. Now, most of the orthopedic surgeons that I knew of in throughout training, in both medical school and going through internal medicine residency, they hated general surgery. They just really can I please be operating and doing something with the knee or something along those lines? Was that your experience?
Well, I didn't hate it. I just didn't enjoy it anywhere near as much.
Yeah.
Even the general surgeons will admit to you that, a substantial amount of the things they do are poo related. And that wasn't
There's
really,
a lot.
that wasn't for me.
No, it's not my jam.
But thank God somebody enjoys that and somebody's good at it. Thank God.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
that's one of the things that always fascinates me is thank God somebody, likes neurology.
Sure.
And wants to look at MRIs and examine people and remember which dorsal column this and
that fires their boats up, and they love being able to localize. Thank goodness. Thank goodness they can. Yes. Yeah.
And they probably feel the same way about foot and ankle, and I don't blame them.
Yes.
But the reality of it is, getting back to what I was saying, you do get patients who come in and they're like, I want someone to take care of all of me. It's like, yeah, we can do that, but I can't do it well.
Right.
I can do that. I just can't do it as well as I can do this.
The more specific, and this is what I talk to medical students about, the more specific you can ask a consultant question, the better answer you're going to get.
Yep.
And so the more specific you can get down, the better customer service that I can provide for you.
Well, we may end up talking about this a little bit later, but I love to travel.
Yes. Perhaps that was going to come up.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
My favorite place in the whole world to go is Africa. Yes. Just got back about a month ago. This time was the first time I took my 16-year-old stepson. So I'm showing him all this stuff that fascinated me. He's a teenager. He's like, yeah, whatever. But maybe he'll remember some of it. But there's always something that I look for when I see somebody who's never been to point out. And everyone's seen the Cape buffalo, the big, imposing 2,500-pound beast with these curly horns like this.
Yes.
So they are
Dagga boys, right?
Dagga boys,
Dagga
the
boys.
mud-soaked ones off to the side. They also apparently are delicious, and so you'll see some bodies that have been left on the side, and you'll see the skulls with big, huge horns. And if you walk up to a skull of a Cape buffalo, you'll see these little tubes hanging off the backs of the horns. And they're not there during the animal's life. And what they are is the larval capsule of something called a horn borer moth. It's this one little dinky moth that lays its eggs on the horn, this just pure keratin of the Cape buffalo horns, and it digs in and eats the keratin and creates this tube and pupates, and off it becomes a moth. And this one tiny insect is the only thing that takes that thing and recycles it back into the universe. And to me, that's like the ultimate specialization. How much more specialized can you get?
That is true.
Than one moth that eats buffalo horns. And the thing is, there's probably nobody better on earth at eating a buffalo horn than that
That's
moth.
the thing.
It's
Yeah,
all they
that's
do.
its raison d'etre right there. Yes, exactly. And
so
they've got 42 inches of it
Right.
with which to be able to eat.
And if that moth tried to eat the whole buffalo, he'd be really in big trouble.
SOL. No, he's not going to be able to do that. That's
what the lions
That's
are
not what they do. Yeah, exactly. No, it's fascinating. It's also it kind of speaks to how biology is really fascinating
Amazing.
and complex. And
Yep.
so we will get over to your African sojourn here in just a little bit. Back to training for just 1 second. You decided foot and ankle. How does foot and ankle fall into your world where you said, nah, screw the shoulder and the knee and all the other stuff that the ortho folks like?
So believe it or not, the number one reason I did a foot and ankle fellowship was because the foot and ankle training in my residency was weak to non-existent. So we had trauma, we had some things like that. Mm-hmm. But the last thing I wanted to do was be an orthopedic surgeon, have someone come and say, hey, I sprained my ankle. Can you help me? It's like,
well, better hit the old dusty trail.
Let me look this up.
First thing to do.
We did not have a foot and ankle fellowship trained or any trained attending. Mm-hmm. I had no, day-to-day clinic-based foot and ankle experience. It's like, I better go ahead and do this if I want to be a complete orthopedic surgeon. So my goal was to learn more about foot and ankle, and my plan was to go ahead and do about 50% foot and ankle and about 50% general orthopedic surgery. And so a couple things happened on the way to the fair. Number one, I got there and I had really, really great mentors who were really excited about it. Yeah. And foot and ankle back then was really kind of an emerging specialty in orthopedics. It had been something that had been wildly neglected for two reasons. Reason number one, arthroscopy. Reason number two, arthroplasty. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is, all the orthopedists back then were doing all that stuff. Along come these two unbelievable developments that allowed you to treat things much more effectively in such a classy, amazing way that's all orthopedic surgeons wanted to do. They had this backlog of these old folks limping around with canes who they couldn't do anything for, with terrible hip arthritis and terrible knee arthritis, this massive backlog. And they were doing nothing but hips and knees and scoping knees on young athletes. And they didn't have time to do foot and ankle. And so the podiatrists, who then were called chiropodists, which pretty much involved trimming toenails and fitting shoes and orthoses, they're like, we'll do it. And so from an orthopedic standpoint, it kind of fell by the wayside through the 70s. And then in the 80s, a couple of folks were like, wait a minute, we need to start doing this again. Guys like one of the sort of the true geniuses and grandfathers of foot and ankle orthopedics, guys like Mel Joss and Roger Mann and Mike Coughlin and these guys really led the charge. And it was really starting to go on the upsweep. We were figuring stuff out that literally people had no idea what it was. And so the opportunity to really see and learn stuff that was new and revolutionary was interesting. Dr. Clanton made it fascinating. I was fascinated by the biomechanics of it. Mm-hmm. And by the time I got to the end of my fellowship, I really like this. This really keeps me intellectually stimulated. And then the second thing that happens is there are three things in orthopedics that the average orthopedist cannot get out of their clinic fast enough: pediatrics, spine, foot and ankle. And so even if I wanted to do general orthopedics, there was nobody who was going to send me a knee replacement. There was no one who was going to send me a shoulder scope. You can have all the feet you want.
But the foot and ankle is going to come right to you. Yep. Your compatriots are just going to send immediately.
And there was a backlog of it. Mm-hmm. And the more I did it, the better I got at it. And the more I enjoyed it. And hopefully the better I'm able to help people.
Yeah, so, you've been doing it for some number of years. I'm not going to have you quote exactly
25.
what that is. Okay, so some fair amount. So I think it's fair to call you an expert. I think it's also fair that you are known around these here parts, including the Panhandle, Florida, as the foot and ankle guy. And you have partners that help you along in that path. But have you found yourself, do you test yourself in terms of, can I visualize just looking at somebody and say, I think I know what's going on here, just from the get-go?
I mean, that's when I go to, say, Europe or whatever, this is my favorite game to play in my head is like, see how somebody's limping and be like, I bet he has this. So, I mean, yes, I can do that, but, there's still just enough times I'm completely wrong that I still have to make sure.
Yeah. So it shows that our model is not entirely perfect. I try and do the same thing with guessing the age of the patient based on their EKG. That's another fun one to do. And you get better over time as you do that kind of thing. So where did you go to practice immediately thereafter?
So right out of training, at the end of my fellowship, I went to New Zealand. And the reason I did that was in my 4th year of med school, keep in mind, jumping back to college, if you may be too young to remember when is it the World Cup, whatever the sailing race is, where the Australians won in like 1987 or something like that. So there was this huge Australia is the greatest place to go and no one had ever heard of it. And isn't that neat? And there's crocodiles and kangaroos and everything kills you. And so I kind of had this fascination with Australia, and my friends were like, oh, we'd really love to go to Australia. It sounds awesome. So as we got closer to my 4th year of med school, I'm like, why don't I go everyone's doing, I'm going to do a 4th year rotation in St. Louis, and I'm going to go to Seattle. And like, oh, that's really cool. Yes. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to Australia. And so one day I picked up the phone and dialed international assistance, and I asked for to connect me through to Sydney, Australia. Got to them. I said, I need to speak to a hospital. I got to a hospital and I said, are you a teaching hospital? And they said, no, we're not. I'm like, can you tell me who is? And they gave me one, and I called them. And I said, okay, I'm a med student from America. Do you guys accept American medical students for 4th year rotation? Said, yes, we do. And I said, do you have something available in the cardiology department? She's like, yeah, we do. But you see, the deadline's tomorrow. I'm like, oh. Okay,
all right.
Well, what do I need? So she tells me everything I need. I literally spent the
tomorrow might be today because the timelines, exactly. I'm not certain how that works. Different. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm running around all over creation, getting all this stuff together to apply for this thing. And
you just did this on a whim.
Just because I felt like it. Yep.
Wow.
So I'm running around like, it was basically like they tried to tell me I couldn't do it, which was like, well, whoa, wait a minute. Hold on.
Exactly.
So I went ahead and gathered all this stuff up. And, keep in mind, this is 1989.
So you pulled out your smartphone.
No, 1993. Sorry.
You pulled out your smartphone.
Oh yeah,
You Googled where to go. Okay.
And by smartphone, So I literally had to go ahead and run down to the hospital to the med school study area, print all this stuff off, and then I had to ride my bike up to Kinko's, and I had to go ahead and fax. And this was to fax a sheet of paper to Australia in 1993 was I think like $11 a page. And I had to fax like 15 pages. Like,
can I write you a check at Kinko's?
So I fax it all in, and next thing you know, the next day she calls and tells me that they got all the stuff. They're going to consider it, and I got accepted to a 4th year rotation in Australia.
I mean, serendipity.
Yep. But. So I went over and did that, and I timed it so that my 4th year of med school concluded when that rotation ended. So I just timed it. So it was at the very end, yes. I had 8 weeks, and I decided I was going to travel through Australia and New Zealand. And I went to New Zealand for like 3 weeks and took this hospital backpack bus all the way through. And I remember seeing this is the coolest country.
And you hated it, right?
It was terrible.
It was just terrible, yeah.
Bungee jumping and jet boating and all this stuff. And absolutely thought it was the coolest place.
Yeah.
So when the end of my training came around, it's like, somebody sent me a thing for a locum tenens in New Zealand. I'm like, well, I'm doing that. I was like, so I went and applied, and next thing you know, I'm in New Zealand.
I mean, it's really wonderful that you have this kind of peripatetic idea of like, no, I'm just going to go and live in a place and experience that, and I don't have any preconceived notions. I'm just going to go in there and jump in, and who knows, maybe I'll help some people orthopedically. So you spend a year there?
Well, interestingly, I was supposed to spend 6 months. Awesome. I already had a job lined up back home.
Okay.
I'm like, look, I'm just going to go do this. And quite literally on the flight over, the New Zealand dollar went through a historic collapse. And by the time I landed, it had lost 40% of its value, which would have been awesome if I was a tourist.
Yes.
But I was getting paid in New Zealand dollars. So without any taxes or anything, if I converted everything I was getting paid, and you really don't make a lot of money. I think extrapolated, it was about $70,000 a year to work as an orthopedic surgeon in New Zealand.
Yeah, of course.
So you're not doing it to, do anything other than the experience. And so if I took every dollar and converted it back uphill to US dollars, I didn't have enough to pay my student loans. So, and I had a little set aside, and I just called them and said, look, you either have to pay me more money or I'm going to have to cut this short. It's just, I just can't. I can't. I didn't come here to lose money and go broke.
Of course,
So I ended up being there for 4 months, but learned a ton, got to do stuff that, that was probably the only time in my life I was like truly a general orthopedist. And that's really the best time to do it because you've just studied for the boards and you've done all this stuff.
You're never going to be smarter.
You're never going to have more book knowledge for sure.
That's right.
I had shipped over all my orthopedic textbooks, so they were all there. And, this was in the early days of the internet. I must have burned out, those, 1 megabyte lines to get back and forth to my mentor saying, here's this x-ray, please tell me what to do.
Yeah.
But I was doing tendon transfers on the hand. I was doing, femur fractures. I was doing the very first guy I saw was skiing and he fell down like a week ago. He's like, for some reason I can't bend my wrist anymore. I'm like, well, let me take a look. And he's got a dislocated lunate, which is about as challenging. He had what's called a dorsal perilunate dislocation. And
I'm glad you didn't use the eponymous name for that because I'm sure it's Rogers fracture or something that nobody knows what that is.
Billy Bob syndrome.
Yes, exactly.
But anyway, if for any orthopedist listening, they know that that's not something you want to see as a foot and ankle specialist. And it's
I'm sure they would have clutched pearls, and I'm just immediately like, yeah, sure, whatever.
It's definitely not something you want to see after a week's worth of extra swelling when you're the only person there. So I put it back together, and it's like, well, it's either me or nobody.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I may not be the best at this, but I'm better than this person who's
the Kiwis. Yeah, exactly.
I'm better than the guy who just cleaned the trash out. So I got to do stuff that I never otherwise would be able to do. I proved to myself that I could accomplish it.
Yes.
And I also think I proved that it's like, what? I probably ought to leave that to the stuff who do it all the time because that's really complicated.
Yeah, I'm not sure I enjoyed that, but either way, it was.
It's a very, very humbling and learning experience.
Which I find medicine to be in a lot of different ways. As soon as you think that like, oh no, I got this, you should be very, very cautious about that. But so great experience, get to experience a different part of the world, new food, semi-new language, and
every weekend I would take little day trips off to some interesting place. I was living on the sort of the south part of the North Island.
Okay.
So if anyone's familiar with New Zealand, there's Wellington's the capital. It's kind of the very southern tip of the North Island, and I was about 90
I'm shaking my head like I know this. I'm learning. It's like I thought New Zealand was the capital of Australia. Here I am learning, so this is good.
Well, there's the North Island and the South Island, and Australia and New Zealand are like big brother, little brother. Like they pick on each other all the time. Yes. But if anyone ever gets out, they're like, oh no, you don't mess with him.
Yeah, exactly. That's my job.
But if you go to New Zealand and you look at the postcards, it'll say North Island, South Island, and then there'll be Australia and it says West Island. So that's kind of the camaraderie / rivalry they have.
Right. That's
but
pretty cool.
When the chips are down, they're locked on.
They got each other. Yeah.
But it was great. It's at the time, New Zealand is famous for having more sheep than people. I know all the sheep jokes. Probably can't tell any of them here.
Trust write them down for me. Okay.
There's not a sheep joke I don't know. But that's one of the
joke about a bridge builder. What? Never mind. Let's just leave that where it be. Okay.
Maybe. But there's the fascinating thing was. I met a couple, I started meeting a few people here and there. I met a couple. The wife was a veterinarian. The husband sort of took care of her practice. And she's sitting there telling me about some of her orthopedic cases and veterinary orthopedics. Mm-hmm. She's like, I really love, veterinary orthopedics. What about this? And I did this. And she starts describing this one case about a cat who got hit by a car. And it kind of becomes obvious that it's like, wait a minute, this isn't one you did like 3 weeks ago. This is in your little vet hospital right now. She's like, yeah, I can't figure out how to do it. She's got a fractured hock. And it's like, well, the hock is actually the ankle.
Okay.
And it's like, I don't know if I should mention this, but I just finished a 1-year foot and ankle fellowship. I might be able to help you.
Yes.
She's like, are you serious? I'm like, the next closest person I know is 12,000 miles away. I'm free.
I'm
available.
Best one. Yes,
I'm here.
Exactly.
And so I went over there with her to her office. She put the cat to sleep. I went ahead and did a little cat surgery and sort of did this pinning technique that she'd never heard of, probably because I made it up on the spot.
Yes.
But teeny tiny itty bitty little ankle about this big, but just kind of being able to creatively come up with, I understand what the ankle does, how it has to be stable. This is what I would do. And so I was able to fix this cat ankle. So I've now operated on
You have to, yes.
It was a lot of fun.
Cat surgeon, feline surgeon. Who knew that was coming on? But the comparative anatomy there must be
amazing.
really fascinating, and just the verisimilitude there of how they overlap, and just I'm sure that must have been filled with, oh, that's what that looks like, and this, oh, that makes.
And it's so tiny. It's this, and again, not to jump forward to Africa, where my head always is, but. Skeletons, not as many as you'd think, but when I come across a skeleton in Africa, I always ask if I can jump out and sort of reassemble it and put it back together.
Yes.
And the comparative anatomy for animals fascinates me. Like I found this gigantic bone. It was from a giraffe, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. And it's like, that's got to be the calcaneus. It's this long. I can't figure it out. And it turns out the thing that was confusing me was it was the ulna and the radius, but in a giraffe,
fused?
it's all one bone. But you can sort of see the little vestigial rim because they don't have to do this.
They do not.
They just have to go that way.
Their pronation is not.
They need to go
necessary,
one direction, usually away from the lions.
Yes.
So all of their what would be our forearm bones are fused. The ulna and the radius. They're
How about
one bone.
that?
Yeah. So just stuff like that's fascinating to me.
This is kind of like, when you go to a foreign country, you learn a lot about your own native country whenever you do that. It's just kind of the same thing here. As you see this vertebrate anatomy come up, you probably learned a lot more about human anatomy, and I know a lot more about ankle and why it works the way that it does with that. So, so let's move on to you coming here eventually. How did that happen?
To Tallahassee or Panama City or both?
Both, all.
So right after New Zealand, I moved. The job I'd lined up was Flagstaff, Arizona. So I did my residency in Tucson, which is beautiful. I loved Tucson. It's not where I would want to live because I like the green and the seasons and things like that. But the desert's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And Flagstaff, everyone's like, oh, Flagstaff, that must have been great because they went there for a weekend in the summer on the way to the Grand Canyon. And you know what? It's fantastic for a weekend in the summer on the way to the Grand Canyon. But the rest of the time, it completely defeats the purpose of living in Arizona, which is you want it to be warm most of the time.
Yes.
It's cold in Flagstaff.
That doesn't make any sense to me, by the way. None of this makes sense.
It's at 7,000 feet, and it's cold and it's dry. And quite honestly, it's full of people who really there's about 50,000 people, and most of them wish the other 49,000 would leave. It's not the friendliest place, but it is a beautiful setting. And so I was married at the time. My then wife was miserable. I didn't love it. So we decided to start looking around, and we wanted to look in the Southeast because I tell people the reason that I moved to Tallahassee was to be closer to my future ex-wife's family because that's actually the truth. So we interviewed a number of places.
Check that box. Okay, yes. All right, good.
Interviewed a number of places. I actually happened to run into the guy who was the foot and ankle specialist at Tallahassee Orthopedic Clinic. I met him at a meeting. He trained with one of the people I interviewed with for fellowship, who I was talking to about a job in Charlotte, where he's from. Yeah. This fella, Bruce Cohen, who'd moved up there. He's like, wait, are you looking for a job? I'm like, yeah. He goes, you got to talk to my old group in Tallahassee. She's like, the only reason I moved was to come work with Bob back in Charlotte. And Bob Anderson, anybody who's a football fan or even a basketball fan, anybody you've ever heard of on the team you like who's had a foot surgery, Bob Anderson did it. He's like the NFL foot and ankle guy.
Okay, all right.
He's a brilliant guy, just such a great person. Trained a ton of fantastic foot and ankle guys. So just coincidentally, I ran into this guy. That's what alerted me to Tallahassee. I had never even considered it. Because if you search in Florida, you get all these, Miami and Boca Raton, and I just wasn't interested in South Florida.
Yes.
But I'm like, he says it's really good. Let me go talk to it. And it just all fell together. I came here. I really liked the area. I liked the people. And literally within 2 weeks, I'd signed a contract. So here I am. I moved to Tallahassee. And within a couple of years, I learned that I really liked Tallahassee. My then wife, not as much. So I stayed and she left and everything was fine.
Okay. All right. Good. So you lost some weight there. That's how that works. Okay. Yep. So you were practicing out of Tallahassee. Now, TOC branches out from Tallahassee and starts to kind of evolve outward there. And is it? Yes. And one of the areas that they moved over to was Panama City. Is that right?
Yeah. So we've always had satellite clinics, so to speak. And part of the you probably see this in cardiology as well, that it's like a little island in the panhandle.
Yes.
You're this population center, and then you get to these areas where there just isn't enough population to support a specialist.
That's right.
And really, between Tallahassee and Panama City, there are no orthopedic surgeons. And really, east of Tallahassee, you don't hit another orthopedic surgeon until you get to like Lake City. So we're in this big island. So we've kind of got this natural catchment area that funnels to us.
Different from South Florida and Central Florida, which is very dense.
Yeah, where you can have 3 orthopedic groups on the same street, and they're all fighting for this block.
Right.
So we've always had satellites. We have one in Perry. We have one in Mariana. We've had one in Bainbridge, and over time we've picked up Thomasville and Cairo, Georgia, Chipley, and we had been talking about the decision: do we come over to Panama City or not? And for me, I was kind of the biggest cheerleader at TOC for coming over here, and a big part of the reason was, I believed that we could go ahead and sort of export our model. And our model is that everybody's got a fellowship and everybody does their thing. Nobody tries to do your thing or your thing, your thing. So it's the specialization model. That's what we wanted to kind of bring over here. And, we have a unique situation in Tallahassee where it's really one really large group and then another much smaller group. So we've had the ability to grow like that, where we could become specialists and we're not fighting with each other over I can't send him that shoulder because then he'll do all the shoulders and then what will I do? It's like, please take the shoulder and I will take your foot and ankle. So we decided we could maybe try to export that model because I really do believe that we've been able to sort of elevate the quality, at least of foot and ankle care. I'll just stay within my little zone. And for me, the thing that really was like the impetus, like we have got to do this, was I was on call the night before and 2 nights after Hurricane Michael.
Ah, yes.
And so I was on call in Tallahassee. Yeah. So the night before, we got 20 patients who were evacuated out of the hospitals here over to the hospitals in Tallahassee. And so I got to scurry around and see all that stuff. And then, 2 nights after, by then, all the ambulance companies knew that there was nowhere to take them in Panama City. Both the hospitals were ripped open. They were just completely functionless.
Yes.
And so we just got this deluge. And a typical call night for me, I would kind of keep track over time, was maybe 8 to 10 consults, maybe 12, and maybe 3 to 5 surgical cases on a call night.
Few operations out of that.
Yeah, on a call night back then. On those 2 nights combined, I had 18 consults and 23 consults, and I believe it was about 21 or 22 surgeries between the two. And
and probably some more advanced trauma than you're typically used to, just because of the
volumetrically, and hat tip to my partners, they were great. Everybody pulled together to try to go ahead and help these folks, and people were coming in left and right to get out from underneath the load. And then what we saw was the orthopedic community over here is a little bit more split up. There's a lot more smaller groups, and there's a little bit more fragmentation. And I know that a number of people either retired or left or whatever else. It's like these people really need help.
Yes.
And so that was, to me, that was the big push. It's like, let's go on over there and see if we can, lend a hand and try to bring this model that way. And so, we've been just over 3 years now. I think we started in August of 22 is when we opened the office. We're now up to, so we have 3 full-time orthopedic surgeons. Okay. We hired a spine neurosurgeon. We have 2 full-time pain management guys.
Yes.
And we are very, very actively recruiting for what I think is probably the biggest orthopedic need in Panama City, which is hand surgeon.
Oh, okay. Yes.
There's really only one guy here.
Yes.
I know Mark. He's a great guy. I really like Mark.
Yes.
But he needs help.
Yes.
So we're really aggressively recruiting for a hand guy. There's only 2 of us who come over here from Tallahassee, and I kind of made the commitment to come over here. I said, look, I'm here at the end of my practice, or rather coming towards the tail end of my career. Why don't I go ahead and pick up myself and leave my family every other week for 3 days?
Sounds like a great idea.
It's like, exactly. I'm not sure what I was thinking.
Yes,
but I did commit
thought
to
you were
it.
smart, but here we go. So,
I did commit to it, so I'm honoring my commitment.
Yeah.
And so I come over here every other week on Wednesday afternoon and see patients, and then I operate Thursday and Friday, and I spend 2 nights here, and then I head back home. And you know, it's been very interesting to come over here and sort of start a practice completely from scratch, but still have my other one.
yes, so you
because
get
I-
both experiences.
Well, right. Well, the best part, I'll tell you, this is honestly the best part. When we're young and we're stupid, as opposed to when we're old and stupid.
Yes.
When we're young and dumb, we do stuff that's partly driven by the fact that we're young and dumb, partly driven by the fact that we're nervous and things are chaotic and we haven't figured it all out yet, and we don't know how to practice. And there's all this stuff that goes into developing how you practice. And now I kind of have that figured out. So I basically was like, I'm going to come over here and I'm not going to make any of those dumb mistakes I made before. And so it was really fascinating and interesting to be able to do that. I really enjoyed it.
You know, one of the things that I found in my career is that the first 10 years out of fellowship was me trying to prove that I could do cardiology.
Right.
And so then, you know, after the cardiology became the easier part of my life, then it was, well, what is the next challenge? And
Right.
so opening that practice and kind of doing that thing, it's a different set of muscles to flex. And
Yep.
so that makes it exciting and entertaining and kind of, you know, I would imagine you feel pretty comfortable in the operating room right now. So,
Yeah, it's, you know, I don't have to read about cases anymore. I've done almost all of them.
you can do cat cases if you need to. So it's,
So I've actually operated on several of my chickens now. So you know, I got it all going on. I've operated on a minimum of 3 species that I know of. So
this is a multi-species
Yep.
fellowship. That's an impressive one to hang on your wall. Tell me what the future looks like for orthopedic surgery.
Oh, my goodness.
What are your thoughts? And we can talk specifically about foot and ankle. What is that going to be like?
well, you know, it's I think you have to kind of put it in the context of sort of the future of medicine.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people who are nervous about AI. I think the radiologists are a little nervous. Some will tell you they aren't. Some will tell you they are. I think even cardiology, there's some jitteriness about AI reading EKGs.
Perhaps there's a little heartburn on that, but
Yeah.
but there's also potential for
Sure.
helping a lot of people.
Yep, absolutely. I can't think of a way that, and this is probably famous last words, but I can't think of a way that AI could replace what I do. I mean, I just operated on somebody who'd been operated on 3 times by someone else and try to get through scar tissue. I don't know how you program AI to contend with that.
Yes.
But that's certainly going to be something that bears watching, and maybe one day we'll get the tricorder, and then we can all.
Yeah, it might. You know, I mean, there's also a lot of talk from our end about prevention of cardiovascular disease because that's much easier to take care of than actually
absolutely.
treat it along the way. I mean, is that, you know, by the time somebody's usually seeing you, it's usually a pretty severe complaint that you're at least thinking of sharpening your scalpel to kind of amend whatever that is. But I mean, is there some sort of correct or some preventative measures that you guys, if you get that chance or opportunity to talk to people, that you speak about?
Well, you know, I'm hoping that people start paying attention to some of the things that are being brought to the fore about nutrition. A woman developing has about to age 25 to put down their maximum bone density.
Yes.
After that, it's too late. So you can take calcium and vitamin D supplementation after that to kind of slow the decline, but you to actually build up, you get to the highest part of the mountain at about 25 and it's all downhill from there. And you can change the slope of the downhill, but it's downhill. So, making sure that, the classic hip fracture is a little old, 78-year-old, usually a white woman is much more common because that's who has much more likelihood of osteoporosis. But if we can just get everybody on board with making sure they're having good diet, good nutrition, good intake of the right stuff,
Yes.
and just maybe some way to deviate people away from just eating garbage. So that would help you too.
Indeed. Well, it certainly help humanity, I think, in a
Yeah.
lot of different ways. You know, I don't, you know, we had kind of spoken a little bit about how evolution fits into thing. I don't think we were evolved to handle this amount of caloric glut
not at
that
all.
we find ourselves exposed
Yeah.
to. And so to find a better way to utilize nutrition for the needs that we need
Yeah.
them is great. Now, the other thing that we're big about is exercise, both cardiovascular and muscle building for our patients.
And
Now,
bone density.
Yeah, bone density, all of that kind of coincides and kind of comes together to help. Now, you also must see, I would imagine, two different, a bimodal distribution. One is the older folks that tend to fall and have traumatic injury, but there's got to be some athletes that are along in there too, that are younger, healthier, better specimens, but do some damage because they say, oh, I'm 35, I can go play basketball or something like that. So.
Well, in Tucson, where I did my residency, there's just north of there's a place called Marana, M-A-R-N-A. And it's got a world famous skydiving facility. So if you've ever seen those motivational posters with, 75 people all wearing different little suits, jumping in a big star pattern,
yes.
Those are all done in Marana. And the reason they're done there is because there's like 320 sunny days a year. So people come from all over the world, and you don't want to go to Ohio and sit there. It's like overcast again. Geez. So they go to Marana. So oddly enough, we were seeing an awful lot of skydiving injuries, way more than you see here. Like, I don't think I've ever seen one here. We would see, 1 to 3 a month, and like bad ones. And so one of my co-residents did a research paper on, the distribution of injuries for skydivers. And some of the things were typical, what you'd find, mostly lower extremity, ankle fractures, whatever. But one of the most shocking ones was the injury severity score was directly correlated with the number of jumps you'd had. So
the higher,
so if you had 3,000 jumps, you were the guy who was going to go ahead and really, really
you were going to get something.
Because literally the first patient I saw on the trauma service, and I still remember his name. Sorry, HIPAA, can't say it, but I still remember his name, and this was 1994. And he was doing those swoopty things where you kind of come out and you get above your chute and go under like that, swoop. And he thought, I've done about 4,000 jumps. I probably got room for one more of these. And well, he didn't. So he gets above his chute and he didn't have time to get back under it. So he fell 60 feet and just destroyed everything from here to here and just caved his face in as he fell forward. And the thing I always remember is, his head swelled up, Halloween pumpkin size, and he was in the ICU for the whole month I was on the trauma rotation. And he was extubated like the day before I rotated off. And literally the first thing he asked was, when can I jump again? Like his tube was just barely out, and when can I jump again?
It's their raison d'etre. Yeah. Like it's what they live to do. Yes. So
there's certainly risk takers have their own specific set of fractures, but
and cerebral abnormalities.
Right.
It can be different.
But the biggest probably the biggest percentage of what I do is going to be more like degenerative and wear and tear and stuff like that.
Yeah. So. Now, when you are speaking with your patients that have had degenerative wear and tear, what are the warnings that I often say, look, I'm not going to get you back to where you're 18.
Right.
But here are some of the reasonable things that we can expect. I mean, can you get near complete functionality of an ankle for most everybody that comes in through your door? Or
I wish I could.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes people come in like this guy who crash landed his parachute. Yes. He's not going to have near functionality of his ankle. I'm not sure he still has an ankle. It's just mush.
He's oddly got 20 more bones than most people do now. Yeah.
But you have to get them to learn what their limitations are, but then try and give them an avenue where they can still be, adaptively active within those limitations. Like, we do a lot of ankle fusions. Yeah. We try to do some ankle replacements, but ankle fusion's still pretty common. And very effective, very durable, great pain relief for when you have terrible arthritis, but it completely messes up your walking mechanics.
Yeah. You're not going to be able to squat anymore.
Not well.
Yeah, not well.
But, on the flip side of that is you start seeing the kinds of tangential inventions and innovations that come along. There's rounded bottom shoes that are being made. The Hoka has become very popular.
It has, yes.
And not all of them have it, but a lot of them have the rounded bottom, which goes ahead and sort of substitutes that bending motion through your ankle that you can't do anymore and trades it off for rocking. And so it's adaptive things like that allow people to still be active. And the very first one of those was called MBT shoes, which stood for Maasai Barefoot Technology.
The Maasai tribe.
The Maasai tribe in Africa.
They don't have shoes.
They not often.
No.
Well, they do now. But,
and it doesn't keep them from running very well either. So it's yeah.
But we try to go ahead and work towards giving something they can adapt to. I'll tell people, look, if you love running the same way you love riding a bike, I would tell you to ride a bike because it's cyclic, it's less impact, and still gives you the same kind of cardiac fitness.
Yes.
You can substitute a rowing machine. You can do swimming is great. All those things that are less impact. And as I get older, there's just more and more things I don't do anymore.
Yes.
Skiing is out.
Skiing is out. No, I think about that every time I'm either playing soccer or skiing. It's like, is this the time where the ACL is going to go, or what's going to happen here? But luckily, we've got some orthopedic friends that can help for that kind of thing. So I will call you or emergently. Do you have any recommendations for people that are starting out in your field, young trainees that are coming out? What is the advice that you would tend to give them?
So I'd give them some advice.
I don't know if you talk a lot. I don't know if you've got some thoughts about things.
This is the only thing I have an opinion on. So you might want to write this down.
The one
in your
thing.
book.
Okay, I'll write. Yes, please, if you would.
No, I mean, one thing I would tell all physicians is you darn well better learn to get involved. And when I say get involved, I mean you need to get involved in the political aspect of it. Because whereas medicine isn't political, the ability to practice medicine sure as heck is.
Yes.
I don't treat any of my patients any different, no matter who they are,
Race,
where they're
creed,
from.
color, yes.
But the people who make decisions on how we're allowed to do that, they just make decisions that sometimes make no sense whatsoever. And the only way to influence that or impact that is to be involved and get involved in organized medicine. If you don't want to do that, at a minimum, you need to start writing checks to the PAC, the political action committees that are representing the interests of physicians and patients, so that it isn't just a bunch of people who have no idea what the real needs of physicians and patients are who are making all the decisions. So I would tell them you absolutely have to get involved. That's
great advice.
Yeah. And the only other advice I would give them is that the first 2 years in practice are the most terrifying adventure of your life. So just be prepared. You think you know everything coming out of residency, and the first 30 patients you will be things you've never seen before.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
So
the zebraest of zebras, yes, are going to come to you.
So make sure that you leverage the knowledge and ability of your senior partners or senior members of your community or the people you trained with or any of those things, because you're not going to know everything, and it's a learning curve that never stops.
So I want to transition in something that you've already touched on here, but I think it's been a crucial part. One of our guests so far on the Medical Mastery podcast has been Skip Daube, who is on the Political Action Committee for Florida Medical Association. Excellent guy, excellent physician. You have a similar CV as he does in terms of the amount that you've dedicated to Florida physicians, just in terms of your time and your money, that people do not know much that you do that. It is a thankless job, and I have seen you making the sausage here, as it were, on a big stage. It's always impressive to see you do that. And I don't think enough people realize how much folks like you and Dr. Daube are doing for us just to have us do the things that we want to do.
Yeah.
So when you had said to get involved, I think, that's really sage advice, because if you're not going to get involved, then somebody else is going to do the thinking for you.
Yep.
And now, if I may entreat you, you have a saying about money, and perhaps you would
Very straightforward.
tell our audience about what that is.
The answer to your question is money. Now, what's your question? And really, I hate to say it, but I don't hate to say it because it's completely true. And anybody who stops and thinks about it, it's completely true.
Yes.
So I am currently the president of the Florida Medical Association Political Action Committee, and that comes on the heels of being on the PAC board and then moving up through the leadership track for 23 years. When I moved to Florida from Arizona in 2002, the minute that I crossed over into Florida state lines, my malpractice premiums went up by 400%. And I thought, that seems odd.
Yes. That makes it a lot easier to take care of patients, doesn't it?
So much. And it's so much better for patients.
Oh, it helps.
And it doesn't produce any billboards on the highway or signs on the sides of buses at all. But I thought that was strange. I thought that had probably more to do with Florida than it did with me. So I started looking for ways to get involved because it was upsetting. It's like, what? Wait a minute. What did I do?
I didn't do this. Yeah.
And so I won't bore you with all the details, but basically that's what led to my involvement with the Political Action Committee. And I've been on the board raising funds for to try and elect folks who kind of are either understand the needs of physicians and patients or are willing to be educated. Because a lot of these people go to the legislature, they have no background in any of this. They're bankers or they're soybean farmers or they're whatever it is they were before.
And they could be forgiven for that, for not knowing these kind of things. Yeah. I mean, these are kind of advanced topics that we can't always see the implications of some of the things that we pass.
So really you need to have somebody who either kind of already thinks like you do, or at least is open and willing to go ahead and listen, saying, hey, look, this is why this is relevant. This is why this is important. And if you don't do that, if we don't do that as physicians, I promise you, there's people who are out there doing it on their own behalf.
Yes.
And, the classic example is the trial lawyers. The trial lawyers give tons of money.
Yes.
On the flip side,
much more than Florida physicians.
Yes. So I ran some numbers in my role as PAC president. If you take all of Florida, there's about 70,000 licensed physicians in the state of Florida. That includes some people who are off doing residencies elsewhere or whatever. But 70,000 people hold Florida physician licenses. About 22,000 of them are members of the Florida Medical Association. So that's already a big drop off in involvement.
Yes, significant percentage.
And then of those, the people who are actually willing to get off their wallets and write a check to help preserve the future of medicine and write a check to the Florida Medical Association PAC, 1,033 doctors are willing to get off their wallets and do that. As a percentage of PAC members, as a percentage of Florida Medical Association members, it's not even 5%. As a percentage of total licensed physicians in Florida, it's not even 1.5% are willing to do that. And you'll see these guys or women in the doctors' lounges complaining, well, why did they do this? How did this happen? Why is this happening to me? Why won't they just do this? The answer to your question is money. Now, what's your question?
What's your question?
So please, I would just implore anybody, if you've got to understand that every single day down in Tallahassee, they're making laws that determine how you are or are not allowed to take care of your patients. And if you sit on your heels and sit on your haunches and just hope everything gets better, it's just going to get worse. And, it's incredible to watch.
And we've seen that in some ways. Now, in this political sausage making, it's not just you giving a fair amount of money and a fair amount of your time, which you have done, but it's also building political bridges with people that, we may disagree on some things, but ultimately we're trying to empower physicians to practice the way that they want to in this great state. So, so I really thank you on behalf of everyone that gets a chance to listen to your voice for all the time and efforts that you put in for the Political Action Committee and elsewhere. So.
And let's not sell you short. You've been an active delegate for ECMA. You're the current president. You're doing the work too.
They'll take anyone here. Okay.
So. Yeah. I mean, I heard they had a couple people fall off the bus.
They died. Yes. It was tragic. But either way,
but don't sell yourself short. You're one of the ones who's in the fight, and we just need more people like you and maybe me.
Just more. More people willing to give their time and money.
Here's one thing that if every single doctor in the state of Florida who holds a license gave $100, we'd have $7 million. $100. And that's if they did $100 for 1 year, we'd have $7 million. That puts us almost on par with the trial bar. And we'd be able to compete because, quite honestly, we're the white hats. We're the good guys.
Of course.
We're doing this. We're doing the stuff that's, and every once in a while there's someone who goes off the rails and does something wacky.
Sure.
But by and large, physicians are the ones out there every single day getting up in the morning and trying to make sure your grandma and your sister and wife and husband and everything else is taken care of and has a place to land. And, I'm not sure the same can be said about the trial bar.
I'm not certain of that either.
They seem slightly interested in other things.
Perhaps.
But
other priorities.
The reality of it is the degree of apathy is pretty appalling.
Yeah.
And it just drives me nuts when I see my fellow physicians going, what happened? Well, what happened was you sat there and didn't do anything.
Yeah. So I think one of the messages there is that we can affect that change.
Absolutely.
We can make the difference. It doesn't, $100 from every physician does not take a whole lot there for us to kind of get on par. And, you can talk about how, well, this is disappointing that it has to be this way. Regardless, we didn't set these rules.
Yeah.
They are there, and we have to be able to come to the table because if
you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu,
you're
as
probably
the saying
on
goes.
The menu, indeed.
And one of the sort of middle tiers of being involved in the political action committee is what we call the 1,000 Club, which basically means we look at things in election cycles. It's 2 years. A 1,000 Club member gives $500 a year. $500 a year is $1.37 a day. And as you've probably heard this statistic, I looked at the Starbucks menu. There are exactly 3 things on the Starbucks menu that are less than $1.37. They are a banana, a string cheese, and something that's called a petite vanilla bean scone, which apparently is quite delicious. But that's the level of sacrifice that physicians would have to give up per day to go ahead and be a member of the 1,000 Club.
Yes.
And if every doctor gave $1,000, we would be able to go ahead and pretty much write our ticket on any legislation we wanted. And so the notion that, I can't afford that. Yes, you can. You can afford $1.37 a day. You can be the poorest physician on the planet, and you can afford $1.37 a day. And cancel one of your streaming accounts.
Indeed.
Something, anything.
Don't take my Hulu away, okay?
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
But also, with this relatively little sacrifice, we can make a lot of difference.
Well, there is truth to the power of many. Just go watch A Bug's Life.
Yes, indeed.
It's very simple.
So, again, thank you very much for those efforts. Now, I do want to take a little bit of a right turn here and talk about some of your hobbies.
Okay.
So, we've learned a little bit about your travel, but maybe you could talk about, I don't know, the one place you would be if you could leave right this instant.
The Okavango Delta in Botswana. That's where I would be. But my wife has already been instructed to scatter my ashes there. I like a lot of people my age, I grew up watching Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom with Marlon Perkins and Nova specials and National Geographic and all that stuff. Wild America with Marty Stauffer, and I was just fascinated by this. And my dad loved the outdoors, and he'd take us on little nature walks, and we'd see raccoons, and we'd see possum tracks and this and that. And I just thought it was fascinating. And I used to always tell myself, you'd watch these specials and you'd see or hear about the Okavango Delta, and it just sounded like this may as well have been on a different planet.
Yes.
And I used to always tell myself, like, one day I want to go there. One day I want to go there when I was 6, 7, because Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom came on Sunday night at 6 o'clock, right before Wonderful World of Disney, and then it was bedtime. But I would just sit there and just stare, like I couldn't believe that there were lions and all this stuff. And so after I moved to Tallahassee, I sort of thought to myself, I used to always say, one day I'll go to these places. I just decided it was one day.
Yeah, it's time.
I'm like, you know what? I'm going.
Right.
So the first place I went was the Galapagos, because I used to have a book about evolution when I was a kid.
Of course.
That was so cool.
Of course, yes.
And then
got to see some finches there if you were. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Finches and the little Sally Lightfoot crabs and the marine iguanas and all that stuff's fascinating. And then the next step was, now I got to go to Africa. And I had always been sort of interested in photography, but I used to walk around with my Olympus Infinity point and shoot camera, and I would take some pictures that I was like these look a little different than the ones that Steve took.
Yeah, right.
And I when I got my first signing bonus for my job in Arizona, I was getting ready to go to New Zealand. I'm like, I should get a good camera. So I bought a nice camera, and I took some pictures, and I felt like I was kind of taking some good compositions. It's like, well, I probably ought to learn what these buttons do. So when I got to Flagstaff,
a lot of them on there.
So I took a course at Northern Arizona University in basic photography, and it was like all these journalist majors and sports management majors, and just people who had to take photography. And the first 2, 3, 4 weeks was how to compose a photo. And what I discovered was I didn't know what any of the buttons did, but I was sort of intuitively doing the composition.
Yes.
And so I can't draw, I can't sing, I can't paint, I can't sculpt, I can't do anything, but I did know when to push the button. And so that's my major skill. And so I've really been focused on photography. I do wildlife photography almost exclusively now. I just got back from my 15th trip to Africa. And anyone who wants to follow me on Instagram, it's @PhotoWahoo. Or you can just search me under Andy Borom, but @PhotoWahoo is my
We'll make sure to get that out there.
Yeah, please. And
Chris Josten, our wonderful producer, will make sure that this goes out. Hopefully, we can throw up some of your photography here too.
Yeah, and I do a couple art shows a year. So I only do juried art competitions where you have to submit and they select whether they think you're good enough to be in the show or not. I always try to do the one in Tallahassee. There's one in Pensacola that I really enjoy. I've been as far west as Fairhope, Alabama. I've been as far north as Atlanta. I've been as far south as Miami. I actually got into the Coconut Grove Art Festival, which is a big one year. And now I do about 2 or 3. I imagine when I retire, I'll probably do more than that.
Perhaps. Yeah.
But it's just a neat way to be able to share things that I find really, really special experiences.
Now, did Hemingway compel you in some way? It doesn't seem like it's the hunt of the big game or something along those lines. It seems to be more capturing nature in its essence.
That's exactly it. And so the trip I just finished was with a guide that I've met in 2022. I arranged for him to guide me and my family through Zimbabwe. He's a native Zimbabwean. He's been guiding for 30 years.
Yes.
And he and I would have these just really, really neat conversations. He's just a fascinating guy.
They almost all are.
They're so dedicated to wildlife. They're so sometimes frustrated by the stupidity of some of the corrupt governments. They're so by the stupidity of some people.
Of course.
About all the stuff, but they're always about the wildlife and what they can do to make it better and how to show it to people. And he was telling me, there's a big debate about hunting versus photography versus tourism for just visualizing, et cetera, versus hunting. And he said something to me that I hadn't thought of. He goes, when you're taking a photo, we're tracking the animals. We see the tracks. We get up early in the morning. We go out. We find the tracks. We think they're headed this way. We try to make suppositions off this. And we get up there and we finally reach the animal. And he says, right up until you press that button, absolutely everything we did is exactly the same as a hunt.
Yes.
It's exactly the same. And I'm like, wow, I never thought of it that way.
Yes.
And it's like, wow, I just don't take that extra step. I'm not a hunter because I just didn't grow up around it. Sure. I have zero problem whatsoever with anyone who goes out and hunts an elk and
of course
they want to serve some elk medallions or give me some venison sausage.
Yes.
I'm all for it. I've never understood why someone would want to shoot a giraffe or an elephant or a leopard. I just think they're so beautiful.
Yes. I
don't understand it. But in the same breath, I also understand economics.
Yes.
I also understand, everyone remembers Cecil the lion. So some dentist from Minnesota,
of course,
accidentally bow shot Cecil the lion because he was told it's okay to shoot that thing on his paid hunt, and he did. And they tried to hide the collar, and it created this uproar.
Yeah, there was some
it was just this giant uproar. And all these people were like, he should just this and that. You should this and they should just do that. And not a single one of them's ever been to Zimbabwe and talked to a Zimbabwean farmer about the fact that the entire livelihood of their family just got wiped out by one elephant in one night.
Exactly right.
And they don't know about the same Zimbabwean farmer whose aunt got eaten by a lion earlier that week. And so it's just a very, very different phenomenon on the ground.
And the abject poverty with which they live day in, day out. If you see their schools are open air rooms, just thatch fences. I mean, so this is not a level that you're used to. We've got homeless people in America that are diabetic.
Right.
They do not suffer from this caloric overfeeding.
Right. America's the only country in the history of the world where poverty leads to obesity.
Yeah.
That is not the case in Zimbabwe.
No, it is not. It's not.
But, going back to my earlier quote, the answer to your question is money. Now, what's your question? And I'll never forget. So I just went to, I'd been to Zimbabwe several times before. In 2014, I went to this same park called Manipools. And on the way out, we were sort of circling to get height it was just me and a little, pilot taking me to my next stop. And we're chit-chatting because what else do you do? We got 2 hours.
Of course.
And he says, here, I'll show you the edges of the park, that river, and it goes to this river, and there's the Zambezi. And I said, well, what's all that stuff over there? He goes, it's all hunting concessions. Like, oh, so the animals that are in this park, if they wander over there, they can get shot? He's like, yeah. And I said, okay, well, and this is the question nobody ever asks. This is the question this is where people stop. They're like, oh, well, that's animals. You shouldn't be able to do that. And so my question was, well, what would that land be if it wasn't a hunting concession. He says potato fields. Every square inch of it would be potato fields or corn or whatever. They've got a river right there. They'd divert it. They'd irrigate this whole area, and it would be nothing but potato fields. And then any animal that wandered past there would be shot on sight.
Yes.
Everyone. Every single animal. Not just the
because
one
they
leopard.
will destroy the crops that are there.
Because they'll eat the crops,
100%.
they'll destroy it. And those animals, instead of having this gigantic zone they can wander in that now protects everything from a dung beetle up to an elephant, except for the few that take it for the team. And like I said, I don't get it. I don't know why someone would want to do it. But there is someone who wants to do it. And until somebody somewhere can figure out another revenue generating way to maintain and take care of that land in its natural state, that's your choices. You can either have hunting concessions or you can have potato fields.
Yes.
There's not another option. And I wish that everybody could afford to get on a plane and go over to see Africa. And that's one of the reasons I do photography, is because not everyone can. I love sharing it with them. But until people realize that the same principles that apply to anything we do, which is if you don't have a viable economic solution to what's going on around nanopools, you can't complain. Come up with a solution.
That's right. And this
Please
is part
find
of
it.
This is part of what I say about our practice, which also extends to virtually everything, which is we have to create this as an economic engine so we can continue to do these things long term. It's the same thing there in these small African villages. So now, having seen some of your photography, I don't mind effervescing for a little bit. When I first saw it, I thought that there's no way that some lay orthopedic surgeon had actually taken these photos. They're absolutely majestic. I really can't expound enough on how beautiful that they really are. And I was just jaw agape at really how wonderful they are. You have a very natural talent that comes across there. And so I'm glad you're wasting your life helping foot and ankle patients here. But either way, you've got this career if you're looking forward to falling back on it.
I always tell people that going to Africa turns a lot of people into really good photographers because the things you see there are just incredible. And there's certainly certain techniques and skills and things that you can learn over time. And I'd like to think that the photos I took last month are better than the ones I took 10 years ago. But none of it matters if you show up and there's nothing standing in front of you. So you got to go out and find the wildlife. You got to go ahead and try to make the best you can of the lighting situations and the weather conditions and everything else. But I tell you what, you can become a much better photographer if there's 3 giraffes and a rhino standing in front of you than if
I'm certainly going to take a lot of pictures. I don't know if you're going to come out. So we have dear friends that have gone there and ECMA members, Drs. Kim and Bob Bain, and they talk about the Great Migration and how we have to go see that at some point. So we'll put that on.
They've actually just discovered a larger mammalian migration than the one that everyone knows about. Everyone knows about Tanzania, Kenya, it's basically a continuous loop through the Serengeti and up into the Masai Mara in Kenya. It's a nonstop loop. They're just following the rains in the grass. And there's about 1 million wildebeest and maybe a couple 100,000 zebra and another 100,000 or so gazelles that just kind of make this nonstop loop.
Numbers is boggling.
The predators follow along behind.
Sure.
The largest they've just discovered a mammalian migration that the reason we don't know about it is it takes place through South Sudan into Ethiopia. And I just saw them in Chad. It goes into Chad too. A tiang. It's an antelope called a tiang. And there's a couple other antelopes. And I think there's something like 6 million that go back and forth here. But the actual largest mammalian migration on Earth is something I saw in 2017. It takes place in Kasanka National Park in northern Zambia. And it is the aggregation of essentially the entire world's population of something called the straw-colored fruit bat. And it's a fruit bat that's about 2.5 feet wingspread, and about 14 million of them descend on this one little dinky forest in northern Zambia. And you look at the trees and they're literally all shaped by, like when the bats fly off in the morning, the branches are all like, dear God, thank God they're gone. And they just descend on this one little forest every year in November. And every morning they get out and go flying off. They go as far as 60, 70 miles and they come back to the same forest. And then after November, they're gone.
Man,
So,
nature is amazing. It's
incredible.
beautiful, and we had talked before about if we could use our deductive reasoning back as clinicians in the early '80s. I wonder if we could have used that same deductive reasoning that Darwin had, seeing these finches.
Yep.
When you start to see patterns, that really jumps out. So
it is pretty neat. It's very like this place I just went to, Manipools. One of the main reasons I wanted to go to that park is the same reason I went in 2014. They're in that park, and if you want to look it up, if you Google Manipools standing elephants, there's a couple of elephants that actually have taught themselves to stand up on their hind legs and grab branches. And back in 2014, there used to be about a half a dozen that would do it. And all of a sudden there was just one left. So the other ones had wandered off into the hunting concessions, and they're these massive bulls, which is what trophy hunters want to target.
Of course.
Which kind of makes me a little sick to my stomach, that part.
Yes.
So there was really only one left. His name's Boswell. And they darted him, collared him, told all the hunting concessions, please, please, please don't kill this animal. He's the only one who does this behavior. And so in the last decade, I didn't see him when I went there in 2014. I was really bummed out. In the last decade, they have he's been teaching a couple of other.
I was going to say, it's going to be learned behavior that they can do.
Behavior. So there's other bulls that follow him around. They're like, hey, wait a minute. And they'll try it, and there's no one as good as him.
Sure.
And he'll stand up on his back legs for 30 seconds looking for the right thing. And I asked my guide, I said, why do you think they do this here? He's like, I'm not sure. And I asked him, like, do you think it's because in this part of the Zambezi Valley, there's no giraffes? He's like, maybe. And sometimes it just takes like some idiot with a new set of eyes to go, wait a minute. I'm like,
they're filling that niche.
I'm not saying that's right.
Sure.
Maybe it is.
It's plausible. Yeah.
But it would make sense that, if the giraffes were there, they probably are getting higher than where that elephant can reach standing up on its hind legs.
Now, how many times, if you did see the elephant back
like that?
How many times would you be taking pictures of its back ankles? That would be your focus? Is there a fair amount of film wasted on that? I mean, enjoying it.
We saw him do it about 7 or 8 times, which is pretty fascinating. Yeah. And actually, on my little Instagram page, there's a video of him standing up, and it's pretty cool.
That's fascinating.
But I did get an opportunity to go the very last place we went to. It's called Singita Pamashana Lodge. It's on a private conservancy, and you can really tell the difference between the private-run conservancy and the government-run park. And the management's incredible, and that's another hour by itself. So I won't bore you with the details, but suffice it to say, they got an elephant problem over here.
Yes.
And I hate to say that because I love elephants.
Sure.
But they destroy everything.
Yeah.
They just destroy everything.
Exactly.
And
farmland, buildings,
everything.
Houses. Yes.
They will push over trees this big around and just eat the whole thing to the ground. And you go into the park, into the government-run park, and you don't see a tree smaller than this. There are no young trees. They've all been destroyed. There's so many elephants, they eat them all. You go into the managed conservancy where they kind of keep the elephant population in check, and you can figure out that however you want. Yeah. But there's the entire spectrum of vegetation all the way up, and it's a totally different, totally healthy ecosystem. And it's a very interesting thing to see. But when I was in that conservancy, they had what's called a ground level hide. So they have a watering hole. They dig a bunker. You go down into the bunker. There's openings this big that you look out, and the elephants will literally come up and scratch their butts on the thing while you're in it. And, I had elephant feet, like where if I wanted to, I could have reached out and scratched them. And so I do have some photos of an elephant foot this big, full frame that I took from here to there at eye level.
Yes. I mean,
what an
terrifyingly huge animals. Just the raw power. Yes.
So powerful. It's nuts how powerful. You just have no idea until one of them gets really close to you. And the animals and the elephants in Manipools are so accustomed to people. Not in like a dangerous way, but Manipools is famous for walking safaris. You're out of the vehicles walking around, and you'll walk. I walked past elephants 10 feet away.
Mace isn't going to do very much against them. No.
You'll be strawberry mist if you if you do anything to. But everyone asks, "Oh, do you carry a gun?" No, I don't carry a gun. I carry a guide. Who, yes, he has a gun, but the way more powerful tool he has is he knows elephant behavior. And he will see elephant behavior developing 20 minutes before you even know about it. And he knows how to keep you out of trouble, and he knows what to look for. And it's one of those things where I watch him and I'm just in awe.
Yes.
But in the same breath, I could walk into a room with you seeing a patient and you would know that they have Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome before you go ahead and introduce yourself. And it's pattern recognition, just like you said.
It's exactly
He
right.
sees the ears go this way, or the trunk go up, or the tail stop moving, or this or that. And he's like, whoop, everyone back up.
And I love that flow state of things because it's almost like your brain's not even thinking. It's just, you're just processing, you're just doing, kind of like in the OR, which, by the way, is there anything better than a good tech?
Yeah, no, God, no.
That is one of the, yes, exactly. That just is thinking for you, and you're just kind of going through the motions. That's really great. So, well, look, thanks to you, I have had elephant dung gin, which is
Lovu.
amazing, actually. And it's hard to believe that those contiguous syllables came out of my mouth. But either way, it really was fascinating to have that. So,
and just to let you know, it's not available in the U.S., but having just come through the Johannesburg Airport duty-free, I may or may not have 3 new bottles.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you've got 2 new bottles. Okay, so this is fascinating. Andy, we're going to end up here on just a few rapid-fire questions. Sure. Okay, so first of all, who's the smartest person in history?
Isaac Newton.
Yes, excellent answer. I like that very much.
Brilliant. It's not even close.
Just the whole idea for any of those of us that have studied calculus, for him to think, I'm just going to do this, and figuring it out along the way.
Right. I struggled learning calculus. He was like, I'm just going to make this.
Yeah, I'm just going to make this.
Before he was 25.
Exactly.
Yeah. Second smartest, Thomas Jefferson.
Indeed.
So
very good answer.
Shout out to the University of Virginia.
Shout out to TJ there. So, and the domes. So if we can live to 1,000, should we do it?
No, not until we can figure out ways to make joints last that long. Because, I'm 58 and, I tell my patients all the time, they're like, why did this happen? What did I do? It's like, when I tell them the warranty expires at 35.
That's it.
Sorry.
It's downhill from there.
We all were supposed to have been eaten by a saber-toothed tiger by now.
That's true.
And that's how we're designed. So if we could do something to make the body last that long, maybe, but we'd have to get a lot smarter about a lot of the things that we do in a sort of management of how we do everything else.
Indeed.
But I think there is some real joy to going ahead and having a finite existence and making sure you pack the most you possibly can into it. That's why I travel.
It's extremely well said. At night, do you want it too cold or too hot?
Too cold.
Good. That's the only right answer.
But here's the flip side of that. Living in upstate New York and Tucson, Arizona, I discovered one universal truth. There are only 2 types of people in the world. There are the people who'd rather be too hot and the people who'd rather be too cold.
Yes.
And there's a subset, the people who live in San Diego. But screw them.
Tuck them away, yes.
I am definitely, I'd rather be too hot than too cold person, except at night. Then I'd rather be too cold.
That's right. So that's why we put the stipulations there. What's one thing you would tell yourself if you could go right back as you were starting med school? What one piece of advice would you...
Starting med school?
Yes, med school.
Be less angry. It's so easy to get so angry at yourself, at not knowing, at frustrations. And it took me a long time to get that in check. Yes. And like I said, that's one of my favorite things about being able to restart my career here in Panama City is I got to go ahead and do everything the way I think I should have done it back then. So what I would tell you is do what I did when I moved to Panama City. Just try and do it all right from the beginning.
Just don't make any mistakes. That's all.
Yeah.
What is one current medical treatment or therapy that we are going to shutter that we used in 15 years?
Let's see. That's a good question. I may not be able to tell you what it is. What I can tell you is looking back on my career, there is almost nothing that I do right now that I did is exactly the way I did when I trained. Probably one of the most successful operations ever devised, total hip replacement, total knee replacement, incredibly effective, incredibly functional, fantastic operation. Even that's had some modifications as we go. probably the only thing fracture-wise that I fix almost exactly the way I did in training just 30 years ago is a tibial nail. That's about it. And even that, we're now going ahead and doing the approach above the patella instead of below it. And so it's always evolving. I would never have been able to predict that 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Because, you look at a femur nail, that's probably the most unimprovable operation we do for a femur fracture is a femur nail. But even that, we've changed the starting point from the piriformis fossa to the tip of the greater trochanter.
Well, we all know that.
Yeah,
I mean, come on. It's mere trivialities to talk about that.
As far as things that we are going to shutter, there's something going on in orthopedic foot and ankle right now called MIS, minimally invasive bunion surgery. I think it's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I can't believe that people are falling for it.
Yes.
It's, my belief in orthopedics is our job is to put everything back where it's supposed to be.
Yes.
And this goes the exact opposite way. You go ahead and take a deformity and you fix it by creating a much worse one somewhere else. It's like, that's a terrible idea. So I'm hoping that gets shuttered in less than 15 years.
Yeah. Well, great. So if you have anybody that's suggesting this, come see Dr. Borom and we can talk about things. One last one here. What are the books you're currently reading?
I actually just finished a really great book. It's called The Splendid and the Vile by Eric Larson. It's basically it's a non-fictional narrative about Churchill and his family in the years before we entered World War II. So it's like 1939, 40, 41.
Yes.
It's fascinating because, we never hear that story.
No.
We never hear that there were 50,000 civilians killed in the bombing of Britain. I didn't know that. I just thought the Battle of Britain was, there's some RAF planes flying around and shooting down some Messerschmitts.
Yes.
It was unbelievable. It was fascinating.
What I also understand from that is that there was a push from the government to underreport the destruction from it so as to not have the Germans feel like they had the upper hand.
Right.
It was a tactical kind of play. It wasn't, we don't want freedom of the press. We want to be able to kind of cultivate the narrative in a way that we see fit. And have you been to the Churchill Museum in London?
Yeah, actually, amazingly, my oldest brother goes to London a lot. He really, really likes it. And we actually had a stopover on the way to Zimbabwe on British Airways for 12 hours in London. And so I had my wife, my brother, and my youngest stepson. And I asked my oldest brother, where should we go? He's like, you really ought to go to the Churchill war rooms. And so we did. I didn't know they were there.
It's fascinating.
It's fascinating.
Yes.
And completely unrelatedly, I'd thrown that same book into my suitcase to read. And I didn't even realize that it was about that. So it was really a serendipitous.
To be able to kind of live in those same moments and you realize like, he was actually making some huge decisions in this room right here. That's really fascinating.
Unbelievable wartime leader. Unbelievable. Who knows what would have happened to the British Empire were it not for Churchill's leadership. It's incredible.
Well, I think part 2 of our podcast, when you come back again as a guest, is we're going to talk about how you lead, how we take examples from history towards good leadership, because I'm always in awe of them, just like I'm in awe of you and the leadership that you provide, both for our community, the FMA at large, for your own practice, and for our patients. So thank you so much for everything that you do here. Thank you for the photography. Thank you for the gin that's going to be... I'm just kidding. So, but either way,
I'll bring some
really,
next time.
really appreciate you being here and talking with us today, and please come back.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, man.